I read another piece that I felt really close to as well, which is from is it Generation Z? Who is it? I was like, it's another generation. The newer generation that's just allowed to vote. Like they shared a lot of the same opinions that I do about voting generally and how basically we really don't have a voice and people just make up their own decisions doing whatever. And how no matter what in your state, they're always going to go one way or the other. But they did this opinion piece from Ingrid Jacques. Sorry, I'm going to butcher your name. And I was saying how Taylor Swift is tone deaf. Actually, I'm blaming white women for wanting to vote for her, is the first part. The second part is the media is painting her out as some kind of victim, which is insane. She sure as hell wasn't a victim in our state. Some people are aware of her before she even, set forth because, Biden, who has allegations, wanted to thrust her against our will up in here. There was this whole thing to it. She's my friend. I don't regret any of this. And yet you lost and you gave us Trump. So you should have regrets. You have bad decision making skills. And yes, I mean, there's so much to it. But they did this opinion piece, and it was, I was like, I agree. I mean, it's like Harris lost because she was a bad candidate. Exactly. Don't blame white women for that. No, I blame white women for pushing her on my body. that's the actual truth of this topic right here. Because I had to get a glimpse into this universe of having to deal with people. I never even heard of a Kamala, and I'm pissed, and I was posting stuff and I actually got targeted on Twitter talking about her. Apparently. It was like an apparently. It was before she was even vice anything, okay? And I was like, this is bullshit. I'm sitting here. She's the Ashton Kutcher of politics. Honest to God. And I know that most people are not aware of that, mostly if you're not from our state. And I had to deal with this thing of trying to get paperwork to them. But they're also pushing cops on us and ignoring the fact that this is a global crisis with these guys and their gangbangers and everything else. Anyway, there's a whole thing with that. But the campaign and her acolytes angered a lot of women, and rightfully so, when they began actively talking down to conservative women late in the campaign. Well, they've actually talked down to everyone, technically, because the topic about women is a global topic. And regardless if you're a conservative, and all these other things, she wanted to arrest poor women. There was this whole thing with her, and I go, she's so anti-woman, and she's so piled with male supremacy that it is like, this is the last person you want in here. Just because she's a woman, you might as well vote for Trump because they kind of stand on the same principles. She's just not outright talking the way he does, but she's just as fake as he is. But people think he's authentic, but he's not. But they're both, it's like the same evil, but here's a gender, the gender differences. And then one person, their mannerisms come off different, but they still do the same evil. Perspectives here. Much like in 2016, I didn't vote for the woman at the top of the ticket Tuesday. And it's not because I have fear of a female president. I'm all for the idea. Oh, the Hillary thing? Yeah, that's another woman who really is not for women. And she targets women, lets the man slide. That was my issue from a long time ago, too. And I didn't vote for Bill, by the way. So, it was like, I don't like him either. I didn't like him to begin with. And then, then it turns into this other thing where she's promoting, we should go target women and my man is perfect. Yeah. So she kind of represents that evil grandma thing that's the white woman. That is the problem. That is the problem. And that's the woman you don't want. So, but don't expect me and other women to line up for a candidate simply because of her sex or any other immutable characteristic. I want someone who will stand for my principles and beliefs. Well, you can't expect them to be a damn Christian and wanting to, hail off all this crap up in here. But, when it comes down to it, you're looking at policies and how they've been, dealing with, like, say, the cop crisis, these things. And her and her pals have been up here trying to target women. And I find it so interesting that strippers would sit there and want to even support her. I find it interesting, mostly if you had a past of doing that. Did you forget how shitty your life was? She's the woman that's going to go after you. So you want to vote for somebody that's going to make somebody else's life hell. So you look at these types of things, how their actions have been, law wise, whatever, she did up in here where she wanted to arrest, what was it? Arrest homeless women for their kids not going to school or something really strange where it's like more of it's the government's problem, which causes homelessness, right? So, and the other topic when I was talking about it with the other generation, the younger generation, is that they're like, we all have to partake in order, for democracy to be all this stuff. But I'm like, yes, but the way it is a dictatorship, because it's like the rich people think that their voice is the only thing that matters in this universe, and that they look at the poor like they're a different entity, like they're the slaves that they used to own, and that they talk about them like an object, which is disgusting, and that they make choices for people that they made homeless, and they did make them homeless through through the system, yes. And so it's their fault. And then they want to sit there and control and re-abuse groups of people. So when you start getting into that little thing right there, so yeah, it's disgusting. I go, that's a dictatorship. That's not a democracy. You're sitting there not letting people vote. How are they going to vote on the street? Okay, here, give me your address. There's a whole thing to that. And I was actually bringing that up during election cycles. And, there's a lot to that. So are they making their voices heard? Are they even able to make their voices heard? And those people should have a lot more say in things than the people that are abusing their money and power. And Bernie Sanders, is funny because he made a comment, I guess, right before Kamala started, with her dumb speech, and basically just kind of knocked everybody down, like saying they need to get out of that, thing with the donors, the, corporate, the people with money and stuff perverting everything. And that is the thing. I go, she brings up Beyonce, and Eminem out here, and then you have Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift has quite a large following, and it runs us over. The white woman runs us over. That's the white woman that's the problem. Because I was like, no way. I was like, that woman is evil. And it's crazy to me because I put up a story to talk about her evil, and somehow it disappeared. Because I was going to see if I re-put it up. I had to take some stuff down so I can go through some information because I have a stalker and stuff, So I was like, there's some stuff that was put up. And so I took everything down all at once, and I was going to take time to go through it to put it back up to make sure everything was fine in it. And I went to go look for that one. It's gone. I don't know, She probably had a fit when I first put it up, and I just missed it. I can't even tell you. I'm so lost on it because I could swear I did like this hour-long thing on the case in Malibu. Like this thing in Malibu, how atrocious it is and what an evil, vile thing. And this must have happened right before that Biden pulled her in. They're so snaky. They're evil. That's the other thing about this whole setup, is that nobody wanted her. Nobody liked her. No one's reading the room. And then what they do is they try to mute everybody. And I was like, well, that ain't going to change what's going on in the universe because you don't hear it. And so I'm reading the room, right? I go, nobody likes her. I go, the joke is on them because nobody ever liked her. That's the honest to God truth. I don't like her. Other people didn't like her for maybe different political reasons, but they don't like her. And that was the original thing before Biden even pulled her in. And I go, oh, that's a joke to see her outwin Trump. They don't like her at all, like for a million other reasons, right? So I was like, oh, Biden's purposely trying to make the Dems lose now because that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And But I was kind of like, you never could be so certain about a thing. So I kind of like looked at the media and yeah, and it said Trump was winning. Now, Trump isn't winning overall because everybody loves him. They're basically just like, we're going to vote for our team. But there's nobody really to win here because we're all going to lose at the end of the day, even though those people think that they're going to, all this stuff. But that's what they think, okay? That's what they're thinking. And so I go, we're all losing no matter what. No matter who gets elected, we're losing. We lost. I mean, no matter what, because neither one of them gives a shit about anybody else. And they're fakes. They just say whatever to get to wherever. I mean, Trump's like king of doing that. But, on that side of things, they want to fight for their team. The Dems have been effing up, like effing up the whole time. So they're like, but don't expect me and other women to line up for a candidate simply because of her sex, because of her principles and all that. Well, I mean, I don't know who you are. You could be this crazy ass lunatic Christian that wants to be anti-abortion, but actually the general population is not against abortion or wants the rights taken away. So that's government doing things on their own against the majority of people. So Kamala, who avoided going through the Democratic primary by booting President Joe Biden last minute from the ticket, provided a completely uninspiring and unsubstantial candidate. Yes, because if you take Trump on his own, he tends to stand for something, but he doesn't really stand for anything. But he stands for something, right? They see him like being very passionate. I'm going to change the world and, this and that and all the lies and promises, right? And, we have Bernie Sanders, right? He's very consistent. He's been very consistent and passionate about certain topics, right? So you could pull him out and go, he's for this. And he doesn't like this. And he is not he's pretty authentic, right? He's authentic in what he's trying to fight for. Whereas Kamala, which way the wind blows, dude. Oh, today, Christian, whatever. She's going to say whatever, but she doesn't stand for anything. What does she stand for? You couldn't even pull her out and say she's really strong on any topic other than being corrupt. Yeah, I mean, there isn't anything substantial about her. And it's just, oh, you should vote for her because she's going to be the first black woman, or whatever. There's going to be some argument. I was reading some of that too. But anyway, the first woman to come up in here, some first woman, okay? The first woman president. I'm not voting for somebody because she's a woman. You want that to be authentic, that she's standing for a lot of certain things, and that's somebody you want there, not by force. This was by force. This is the craziest election I've ever seen. The whole thing is just like, what in the hell? And it says a lot of voters saw through the charade, including many white women. And in what many expected to be the nail-biter of an election, former President Donald Trump easily trounced Harris. Yeah, if Biden won over him, and he's not a favorite from a lot of people, it's telling you that they were willing to deal with Biden, which, you're willing to deal with the person with allegations as well. That you're willing to deal with him over Trump when you put the two together. But then you put Kamala, and I was saying they're like pretty much like the same evil. It's just they're not saying, you know what I mean? They say one's saying a lot of things, the other one just kind of going when the wind blows. And then, I don't know. It's just a lot of hypocrisy. So they're like, yeah, like it was so shady that you're like, you don't want this person. That's the only reason why that would happen. Because it's not even the vote of, we don't want Trump back in, we're going to vote for her. It was so bad that people were like, can't do it. Can't do it. That's where it went. That's where it went, you guys. And it's because he was the better candidate and because he spoke directly to voters' top concerns, period. It doesn't mean that he's for that, though. That's the thing about Trump that sucks so bad, is he's a lot of lip service, and he changes things all the time. But the thing is that they believe that. And they get them passionate enough to go, you know what? He's going to fight for me, even though he's not. He's going to fight for me. Whereas Kamala is like, F you, F my party, making us all leave the party, right? And it was like, I noticed this though, because you have to go back into the historical part of this, where Obama and Kamala, and he's like sexually harassing her basically. Like there's this thing in their past. And then they always had this plot or something. I don't know, but we have to question like why Obama would get Joe Biden to begin with, who's terrible, and then pulls this crap up in here, then wants to push police crap because she, even though the whole party saying there's problems, okay, there was a complete, I don't care, and we're going to do all this, and then not address those problems at all, and they are majorly serious, okay? So then just minimizing something to just sexism is bullshit. So they go, yes, yet the reality hasn't prevented the tired hand wringing that Harris loss must be tied to something nefarious. Just her being nefarious, such as America's inherent racism and sexism. Well, the truth is the people that are saying this, more than likely, are the people that have the racist and sexism issues. But I don't like the minimization of our gender being human trafficked and raped and a pyramid scheme up in here as just putting it as sexism. Like it's somehow less than the racism, because racism would not be a thing without them being that way to our gender. They wouldn't have thought about slavery, okay? It's just this thing. So it's a much bigger, more important thing. And so if they're not tackling these things, then those people are just part of it. But that's actually why the people that were voting for Kamala are the people that are the problem. And that's what I was pointing out. It's a reversal, basically. So because we wouldn't vote for her, it's because of those issues, because she went and targeted, women of color and women generally. So that's the reason why we wouldn't. Or even worse, some on the left will try to say many white women didn't have the wherewithal to stand up to the men in their lives. Oh, I've been standing up to them all. I was like, that ain't it. But she's like the man in the room, so I'm standing up to her. She wants to act like a man, so we're going to treat her like a man. Like, the men are not being good up in here. She's like joining, it's like if you can't beat them, join them. So she has joined them versus taking a stance against, the blatant male supremacy. She was in a position of power the whole time before she even got up in here to change that universe that she's in. What is she doing in the universe that she's in now, before this happened? Nothing. She went along with it, promoted male cops to harm other women. That's where I'm going at. So if she's doing that, I don't want her. We could just keep Trump because he's going to do the same thing. Basically, it's like there's no moral thing to this. Like, I have morals. These people don't. It's like, you couldn't even put a gun to my head and go, which one would you go with? It's like, none. I don't have to do a black and white thing. I can actually step back and take a third stance and vote for neither one of them. I could have taken a fourth stance and just voted for Jill, like somebody else, like another party. But what doesn't matter because they're not going to get elected. So it's better to not waste my time and vote for somebody who I don't want. And it can come back on me too, because I'm going to go, oh, you voted for them. You're a hypocrite. It's like, no, I'm strong in my morals and what I stand for. And if both parties are not for things that I stand for, I'm not going to vote for them. That's my vote. Is really interesting. It's like Democrats campaign to attract conservative women, be as condescending as possible. Pretty much. I mean, I don't know what they go on to the story, but they were trying to pander to the majority that is voting for Trump. And you don't want to do that. You want to stand for your, you want to stand for what you stand for and be very strong in your stance, right? So if I'm against rape, right, I can't sit there on this side and go, you know what, it's okay that these people rape these people over here, but I have this strong stance that I'm against rape. It doesn't make any sense, right? And it makes me a total hypocrite, and it makes me not trustworthy, and it makes me fake, right? So, like I was pulling out, I go, yeah, I mean, I have some very strong lines of things that I believe. And so if I believe those things, I can't be okaying it anywhere. And that would be including in prison, correct? So as they're going through all this to make sure that, you know, we're being consistent across the board. And I'm finding out as you're being consistent across the board that there's a lot of areas that we just have been okaying the whole time and didn't even care. It's just there are topics that you just don't really sit and stew on very much. But the more that you show your ideas to the public and so they can understand it, the public will come to you, you know, because when they know that what you're standing for is something that will help better people's lives, and seeing how it would better their lives and why you should be for this versus this other thing. That's what you have to stand for. And Kamala is a pawn joke of hell. I was like, I could go on. I've been going on. It's so crazy because I've been totally dragging her for eons. And I'm like, I cannot be alone in this because the stories that they were writing about her, even that she was all like this, I go, are you telling me that this Ashton Kutcher in the background is now trying to pander? I don't know. It's just, you could see this plot. Like, it seems like a long time plot. Like the plot to go for Backpage, and I'm, you know, rescuing all these human trafficking victims, but I'm going to ignore all the rich guys and the cops that are part of this story, and I'm working with them all. You know, this thing. And, what was I calling her? A badge bunny. Oh, I called her all kinds of things. It was a riot over here. And, but that was before she was even pulled in. So what happens next after all that? As I'm pulling this up, we're talking about human trafficking. And the state here had been covering it up the whole time. That's just another fact, you guys. So you don't want to vote for anybody that's covering up any of that. And they started targeting working class, because these jobs are legal, guys. Whether you like the jobs or not, they're legal. Working class women. And cause them to lose jobs. And this is the Democrats. And I'm totally confused by it because there was a lot of people on Twitter going, the Dems are just as bad. The Dems are... I was like, I don't know what you're talking about yet. You know, because I'm discovering, you know, discovery phase. Like, what is... I didn't know the whole lowdown on this yet. It was like I had bits and pieces, and FBI's like, we're going to go target women now. And then Kamala's in the background with their bullshit. Ashton Kutcher's in the background with this bullshit. Tim Ballard's in the background with this bullshit. There's a groups of these people, right? And then they did that Sesta Fosta thing. I'm like, what is this nightmare going on? These people are absolutely corrupt. And they're running over working class, whether you like it or not, women, and causing them to go homeless. Like, there's a whole thing here. And I was like, this is insanity. And this is the Dem side. And then you start to find out with this gangbanger cop thing that the Dems were very much part of the cover-ups. And I was like, oh man, that thing, yeah, so you start to unravel. Their cover-up stuff is starting to unravel in front of my eyes, you know? And I'm like, yep. And I go, I know for a fact, because during this whole time I was sitting there reporting this thing to that thing. And it was government that was sitting there blocking it. And it was government that tried to get me not to send the paperwork to Kamala. And I'm like, I don't even know who Kamala is. This is just what government told me to do, that I have to do these local investigations and send the paperwork to the state, to the state attorney or whatever over there. I'm like, I have no idea about this process. That's what they said I have to do, so I'm going to go do it. And so we end up doing it, and the next thing you know, they're getting a gutter map, and I almost die, and then throwing paperwork out to wrong addresses and not actually doing the investigation. As you see, they didn't do the investigations because we had cop gangs, and they're trying to pretend like it's a brand new thing that they just found out about. It's their total psh. Every part of government is a fraud, because where was Homeland? Where was Homeland? These are all the things, right? And then you start reading these stories about FBI getting sued because they be raping all their, trainees and sexually harassing their, newcomers. And then, these suits get settled. Like, they get settled because, like, they'll be an attorney and they're like, okay, we settled. We did this thing. We sued FBI. They settled with the victim. Something, right? It'll go on this thing, and then it doesn't hit the news anymore, right? It just goes whoop. And then we saw the CIA, the same thing. And then I'm like, I don't even know if I ever had to deal with the CIA, but the CIA's office obviously allows, presidents to grope children inside of it. So that happened. And so I'm looking at all these different things. And the military. Oh, hands down, military will always be a hot mess. There was a news story that just came out yesterday of one of the Army guys sexually harmed about 20 people. Yes, this is pretty common. The mindset, guys. The mindset, if you understand male supremacy, the mindset. The only way you could change that entity is if it just didn't exist. I mean, the mindset about all of that is so effed up. And people think that we need to have these things. It's like, at this point in time, we probably do need them at this point in time because of all the other countries. But this mindset around every country needs to change. And that's the only way I think you could really tackle those issues right there. This is just my opinion from everything that we know from the mindset of these personality disordered humans. Okay. So, did I miss the topic I was talking on? Oh yeah, so anyway, they were trying to pander to the conservative women, because what they want to do is try to steal them over here. But then you just become conservatives. I mean, they are conservatives. I was trying to say that the Democratic Party is basically con Dems and con artist Dems. They're conservative Dems. They're not actually, like, very liberal, as people keep saying. I go, they're actually extraordinarily conservative because they continually target women. And so no matter what they try to say that they're for women and all, that's just bullshit. It's just bullshit talk. They really hate women just as much as the Republicans do. And they like to play this black and white game back and forth. And you don't want to be part of this ping pong game. You don't. Because they're both guilty. And because they're both guilty, you don't want to be on a side, because then it just becomes this thing like, oh, the Republicans are a bunch of rapists. Oh, the Dems are a bunch of rapists. I'm like, they're both a bunch of rapists. So step back and stop being part of the game. Really stop being part of the game, because it is a game. And all they care about really at the end of the day is their pocketbook, not yours, their pocketbook, because this is just career moves for them. It has nothing to do. They don't give a shit about you. And this is what the new generation is seeing. And I go, yes. Yes. So when they look at our generation, because there are a bunch of morons in our generation, they have this really strong feeling how much they love the country, don't mess with it, leave it the way it is, and all this stuff. And yet, those are the things that they complain about all the time, such as crime, all these other things, which is actually very much caused by, who is it? Christians. Christians don't want to take accountability because they ran this country to the ground to no end. So the policies and the way that they viewed things in the public and child abuse and all those things actually caused a lot of these issues. And also the way that they deal with rehabilitations, if there's even a possibility for that with these people, but the way that they deal with the prison system and reoffending and reabusing, people they already abused in the system, and I've been pulling out lots of different topics, such as the gangbanger topic. Yeah, yeah. But there's actually a lot of stuff in that where I do believe that the victims in those things should be able to come out and start suing those people that abuse them as kids. Because one of the topics was the gang members forcing children into selling drugs. So that was one, which they have no agency, and then they get stuck in this life of crime. Like, there's these topics are really deep topics, but they have to do with the way that racist America was with people of color, and then how they are generally with women overall. And then so women are stuck with raising these children that they didn't even want, letting men rape them all. It has so much to do with all of it together. It's so many topics all in one. And they cause this universe that we live in called hell on earth. Like, it's not a place after we die, it's on earth. And you need to tackle those issues. So if you want to lower crime, it isn't from getting more cops. To lower crime, you need to tackle the home life and what's happening there, because that's how we know that these criminals are being created, regardless of what their economical status is, because it's happening on all levels, right? So that's the area. And so if you want to lower crime, you need to tackle the home life. You need to help moms. You need to do these things. You need to make sure children are out of homes that are not getting abused. A number of things right there. And that is about the most important area that is continually overlooked. It's like everybody knows and they go, yeah, we all been abused. And then they go and abuse everybody else, right? And then they just create more abusers. And situations where they, such as the gangbanger thing, okay, being forced into something like that. That's an area that maybe a lot of like rich America didn't have to experience. But out here, they were forcing kids into trying to be drug mules. And when you're a kid and some adult does that to you, it's mighty scary and it's hella weird. It was something that happened in my early story where they tried to do that. The word is tried. And I was like, holy crap, dude, you could get totally busted for this. You know, it was like me going on this thing. But that's what was happening. And when you're in an environment like that, then, you know, is it really something that should be happening to kids regardless of anything? No, like, they're victims of it. So our prison system, I guess, is, you know, they don't care. Like, they know about it. They're like, oh, they started really young and did this. Like, they somehow have agency to this thing. And so that's just an example of something that had happened. But the Christians wanted to throw everybody in prison just for having drugs and overlook the deeper things on that topic, and, you know, the gang thing and all that stuff. So no, it isn't something that anybody should be promoting out here. It should be something that people are trying to get out of and change those environments so people are not being raised up in that type of thing. I know that I was reading different arguments on it where they were saying they needed to have that because the police were like this and, you know, yada, yada. But overall, generally, it's not good. And the police thing shouldn't be going on, and neither should that. So that's the truth of that topic. What else can I say? That's pretty much it for now, but that's my opinion on what's going on right now. Kamala is not a victim. She is not a victim. Oh my God. That was insane. They're like, you know, Kamala's just thrust into this. It's not her personally. I was like, no, it's her personally. Yeah. She's a monster. You guys, how much the Dems hate their own fan base. They do, because they didn't listen to him at all. It was the craziest thing watching this. I go, oh, Biden's doing that to be evil. They're both evil. Like, they're both evil together. And I'm like, you had to have done that out of spite. Because there's no other explanation for this. There's other women out here that would have been, I could tell you, like a woman that just worked at Walmart that doesn't even have any political background at all would have been a much better candidate. Honest to God, because, like, she hasn't done anything to screw up the state or, you know, make women lose their jobs and die and, you know, do these things. So it could have been anyone else, you guys. anyone else, and you could have got me to go, okay, I'm going to vote for her, because I honestly do not want rapist Trump. I do not want that. You know? And I think a lot of the people on the Republican side would have voted for somebody on the Democratic side, because you still have that middle voting class, the people like me who are like independents. You still have this group of people, a huge factor that shifts the elections all the time, that if you actually brought in a candidate that they're like, okay, I could actually deal with that. They sound pretty sane. Like, what's the worst that can happen out of this? That they actually might do something, that I'm going to give them a chance. If the Dems presented somebody like that, they would have swayed that way, way over Trump. I'm just saying.